So, do Republicans even want a government that works at all? Increasingly, it doesn't look like it. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. It's a beautiful Thursday out here. A lot going on in the world we will be getting to as we go through the program today. I want to start off talking about the billionaire's big con and where the GOP is at in America right now and how it got there and what this means for the future of this country. In our second hour, Professor Richard Wolff is going to drop by. I want to ask him, the 30-year Treasury bonds are now above 2%. What does that mean? I mean, what is the bond market? Why should we care? How does that affect our lives? And for people who want to invest, what does that mean? And in our third hour, we're going to do a conversations with great topics. Dr. Keisha Blaine, a great mind, is the editor of an extraordinary book, 400 Souls, A Community History of African America. That is a collection of essays by other people, in addition to one that Dr. Blaine wrote, about starting in the 1600s right up to today about Black America. And it's fascinating. We're going to do a deep dive in the entire third hour with that. And you're going to learn a lot that you didn't know, and regardless of what you know or think you know. And I'm very much looking forward to that. But I wanted to start with, kind of the billionaire's big con and this whole question of the Republican Party. There's an op-ed in today's Financial Times by Simon Cooper, and it's titled, "Do Republicans Even Want Government to Exist?" I mean, just let that question sink in for a moment. Do Republicans even want government to exist? He talks about how, the big news story right now is how you've got the Trump Republicans versus the establishment conservative Republicans. You've got the Jim Jordans versus the Liz Cheneys. And as if that's a difference. But in fact, he says, basically the Republicans have taken Ronald Reagan's small government ideology and turned it into an anti-government position, period. They're arguing against, on a constant basis, on a continual basis, against the American form of government that was created by our founders. The idea of democracy in a republic, a republican form of government, a system of laws, a republic, which is run of, by, and for the will of the people, we the people, through a democratic process of elections where the majority rules. And, like I've said before, before the Reagan Revolution, we actually saw this work. It's how in the 60s and 70s, well, from the 30s to the 70s, we got everything from Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and unemployment insurance and workplace protections and the Environmental Protection Agency cleaning up our air and our water and, food safety and drug safety and efficacy and all these things. These were all the consequences of efforts put forward by liberal Democrats, every single one of them. And every single one of them was opposed by Republicans, without exception. And they continue to. But the Republicans didn't have this, they up until the 1980s, it was more like, well, let's just go slow. Dwight Eisenhower, Republican president from 1952 until 1961, or 53 to 60, January of 53 to January of 61, bragged about, campaigned for re-election in 1956 on the platform of, I expanded Social Security, I expanded union membership. Now, Republicans, they were still generally opposed to Social Security and union membership, but they were not talking about destroying them. They were just saying, let's not let this get out of control. Well, now they're talking about destroying it. And so, we had Trump, who was savaging, as this op-ed in the Financial Times says, was savaging our intelligence agencies, war veterans, and NATO, right? And the Republicans were just fine with this. They never even put together an infrastructure bill under Trump. So the piece that I wrote for Medium.com today, and Luis, I put a lot of work into these every morning, and I really hope that you have an opportunity to check these out it's at thomhartmann.medium.com. And because every day we put a new one up, and they have to do with our daily take, although we also do them on Saturdays and Sundays. But back during the Eisenhower administration, in the 50s and in the 60s, I mean, these numbers held right up through the mid-70s when we got hit with an inflation shock as a result of the oil price increases from the Six-Day War and things like that, the Arab oil embargo. But up until then, 75%, this was from a Pew Study poll. The Pew has looked at these numbers over a 50, 60, 70-year period. And what they found was 75% of Americans, quote, trust the federal government to do what is right. Throughout the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, or at least the early 70s. But in 2019, the last time Pew, now maybe they did it last year and they haven't published the numbers yet, but the last time that they published numbers was 2019. And they asked, do you trust the federal government to do what is right? And only 17% of Americans said yes. Only 17%. Now, why would that be? I think this is the direct result of a 40-year campaign kicked off by Ronald Reagan on January 20th, 1981, when he said in his inaugural address, government is not the solution to your problems, our problem. Government is the problem. And I mean, consider if you're a billionaire who inherited a multi-billion-dollar or multi-million-dollar fossil fuel empire from daddy, which is kind of like the situation in Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand's novel, where this brother and sister, who are the heroes of the book, inherit this railroad from their daddy. If you don't have to pay to dispose of cancer-causing byproducts from your refineries, but can just vent them in the air, you make more money. If you can cut wages and threaten your employees because they don't have a union, you make more money. If you can run a pipeline across Native American land atop major national aquifers with minimal safety oversight, you make more money. If you can hide your money from the IRS because they've had their budget slashed, you get to keep more money. If you can get the government to cut social programs and public education and lower your taxes, you get to keep more money. So this is what's happened. I mean, we've had this 40-year war on American government. And it has caused the American people to say, I don't trust government anymore because of what Republicans have done to it. Senator John Thune, the Republican from, I believe it's North Dakota, when in this hearing, I believe it was this morning, it might have been yesterday afternoon, they had the Costco chief too. Lindsey Graham was sparring with the guy who was the head of Costco, who's saying, yeah, we should have a $15 minimum wage. And John Thune says, I started working by bussing tables at the Star Family Restaurant for $1 an hour and slowly moved up to cook. The big leagues for a kid like me to earn $6 an hour. Now, that was in the 70s. $6 an hour in the 70s is $24 an hour right now. And John Thune is saying, why should we raise it to $15 an hour? Really? And in Kansas, I mean, this is a great piece over at by Christopher Reeves over at Daily Kos. Kansas Republican Sam Brownback cut long-term unemployment in Kansas dramatically. He cut it from 26 weeks to 16 weeks. In most blue states, it's a year. It was a half a year in Kansas. He cut it down to 16 weeks. And now you got COVID, and people in Kansas are screwed. And the Republicans are running around bumping into each other and banging into walls trying to figure out what to do about it and trying to blame Democrats for this. Well, those unemployment programs, those were the Democrats' thing. Right. We need a $15 minimum wage. We need some good progressive legislation to offer American workers a chance to get ahead. We need to stimulate the economy. There is just so much we need to be doing. And the Republicans have just been saying, no. We're happy being rich men in a poor country, say the Republicans. I'm not. How about you?